Thank you. Let's begin. Good evening, everybody. My name is Julie Scheinman, and I'm the speech coach at Stuyvesant High School, Director of Forensics, and I'm also the speech representative for our Catholic Forensic League. And the first thing that I want to say to you is thank you, thank you, thank you for coming to do this training. As Frank mentioned earlier, without you, we couldn't have these tournaments. Every time one of you comes to judge, 5 or 6 more students get to participate. So I want you to really understand how important you are to the equation. And I'm going to try to make this as much fun and as painless as I can. Okay. There are lots of categories in speech, and I'm going to go through them. But before I do, I'm going to talk a little bit generally about what your role is as a judge. Okay. In all the categories, except for one, the timing of a speech is 10 minutes with a 30-second grace period. Okay. You are responsible. You will be the only judge once you complete the training who is in the room evaluating a student. So it's very important that you understand that you have to make them aware of the passage of time. And the way that you do that is all the events except for one, which we're going to talk about last, extemporaneous speaking, is 10 minutes with a 30-second grace period. So if you walk when the student walks into the room, it's a good idea for you to say, how would you like to be timed? Okay. If they say, I don't want timing, you should still time them. And I'll tell you why. A lot of the kids have already given these speeches before, so they have a very good idea of how long their speeches are. But in extemporaneous, since they're doing that speech for the first time, and they've only prepared half an hour, it's very important that they see time. Now, if a student asks for, let's say, 2 down, in extemp, out of 7, 2 down would mean 5 minutes. And you put up your fist at 5. Can you all see me? 5, and then 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1. This is the symbol for a half, this sort of C, okay? And a fist means stop. That doesn't mean the time is over. The students still have a 30-second grace period, okay? They should not go over the grace period. Our league does not allow you to give a student the highest rank in a round if they go over 7 or 10 minutes and 30 seconds in their events.
Could you go a little slower? I'm trying to write this all down. And what
Okay.
was the C for? Like, I don't even know what 2 down means. Like, I'm
Two,
new to this.
okay,
So
here's the
you're
thing.
talking like we've been doing this. All
I'm
right.
sorry.
Okay.
Okay. You are responsible for timing the students in their rounds, okay? When they walk in, you either ask them or they will tell you, I would like to be timed. Now, all the categories have 10 minutes with a 30-second grace period, except for extemporaneous speaking, which is 7 minutes with a 30-second grace period. So the student may say, I don't want any time, and then you don't have to give time signals. The student may also say, I want I want 2 down. And if they're in extemporaneous speak, that means they have 7 minutes. 2 down means you start the count with 5. If they're in any of the other events, 2 down means you start the count at 8. Okay? So 2 down for a 7-minute event means 5, and 2 down for a 10-minute event means 8. And you give them your fingers, and it's a lot to do, but you have to show them the passage of time through your fingers. So if they say I want 10 down, they can start with 10, and then in the ninth minute you duck a finger, and 8, and then 7, and then 6, and then 5, and then you have 4, 3, 2, 1. When you have one finger left, after 30 seconds, the student will have half a minute left. Half. The C, you can all see it, you can try it if you want. The C is the student's way. You don't want to talk to them while they're competing, obviously. So you go like this, and they know they have half a minute left. And when they finish, either at the 7 minutes in extemp, and this will become a little clearer soon, or 10 minutes in the other event, you give them a fist. Okay? That means they know that they're in their grace period now. And the grace period, no matter how long the event is 30 seconds. Okay? And at the end of the 7 minutes and 30 seconds, you will be responsible for, quote, ranking them. Ranking them means you look at their performances in all the different categories, and we'll go through them, and you give a student a rank. A 1 is the highest rank you can get. Okay, if somebody is the best in the round, they will get a 1. If someone is second best, they will get a 2. And third best, and 3, and 4, and down all the way to 6. You may not, and you should put this in your notes, you may not tie students on ranks. You can't have 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s and 4. No, you can't. You have to make the decision how you want to rank them. Okay, and I'll help you with how to make that decision in a few minutes. All right. So they're gonna walk in the room, they're gonna tell you the title of their speech, and then they're going to begin to perform it. Okay. I'm gonna go through the different categories. I just want to add one more responsibility that you have as the main judge in the round, and that is after you rank the student, giving them a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6, you have to give them what are called speaker points. Now, speaker points are what we teachers call grades. So if somebody gets a 1 in the round and they're really terrific, you can give them 99 speaker points. If someone is in a round that's not that competitive, you can give them a 1 with 88 speaker points. The speaker points tell us how you like it. Sometimes getting a 1 is easier in some rounds than another. So the speaker points tell us your assessment of the round, not just how that child did in the round, but your assessment of their performance. Now, some beginning coaches or judges tend to rank the students 199, 298, 397, 496. That would be a very unusual round. If the first person is terrific, but the second person is just okay, then it could be 94, and the next one could be 90, and the one after that could be 88. The points are used to break ties. The ranks are what get the kids in the finals. If you go 1, 1, 1, and 3 different judges gave you first, you're going to go into the final. If you go 1, 1, 2, you'll go into the final. But if you go 1, 2, 3, there may be 4 or 5 kids who have the same ranks. And the way that we will break the tie is on speaker points. So that if a student gets a 1 with 99, and a 2 with 97, and a 3 with 96, and another student gets a 1 with 88 and a 2 with 86, we will advance the person who has the higher speaker points. It's a tiebreaker, okay? And you must give points. Any questions about that? I'm going to go into the categories in a minute.
I have 2 quick questions. Sorry, are we supposed to note it? And I'm sorry if I just keep talking. I don't know if I'm supposed to like say it.
I don't want you. Absolutely. I'll stop anytime you want me to.
Oh, okay, fine. So, number 1, you said when they walk in, they have to say the title of their speech. Are there rules like if they don't say it, they lose 2 points or something like that? Or
They will.
they will.
They will give. No, you don't lose points.
Okay. What about going over time or being in the grace period?
No penalty. Grace is grace. Okay, great.
What if they go past it?
Then you may not put them first. Even if they go 7 minutes and 32 seconds, you may think, oh, well, it's so close. Don't. They have a time frame. They have to make it. You can write on the ballot, you were terrific, but you went over time.
You said we do the fist when the grace period starts.
I do the fist, and then personally, I don't usually do the whole grace period. I sort of give them a slow closing C, and then that second fist means you're about to go over.
And then do we say something like time when the grace period is over?
They know the signals. You really shouldn't address them at all.
Okay.
You should speak to them. It may break their concentration. So you just time them.
So like whatever that is, they'll know.
Half is that.
Okay.
This is stop, and then you do a little C, and that's kind of the grace period. But I don't sit there and go 10, 9, 8, 7. You can if you want to, but it's not really necessary. But when they get to 10:30 or 7:30 in extemp, let them know. They may just stop in the middle of a sentence because they don't want to be overtime. Now, if you're judging around and somebody's getting a 2, you don't have to drop them down. The only rule about going overtime is that you cannot be ranked first. So if you're ranked third, you don't have to drop that person to fourth. The rule is you cannot be ranked first if you go overtime. Okay. I'm glad you asked that question about, saying time or whatever. You should not ask the kids anything except for the title of their speech. And in all the categories, they're going to either put them on the blackboard, or in the case of extemporaneous speech, they're going to hand you their category. They're going to hand you a slip of paper, and that's the question they're going to address. All right. Now, a couple of general points I want to make to you, and this is really critical, is that in all of these categories, there will be things that are funny and there will things that are dramatic. We do not separate dramatic from humorous. So in dramatic performance, even though it's called DI, dramatic performance, you may see something as hilarious as The Odd Couple or something really funny, and you may see something as serious as Sophie's Choice. You do not compare and say, well, I think drama is better. Okay? You rank the student on the performance that they give. Did they move you? Was it an honest performance? Were they consistent? Did you believe in the characters? Were you empathetic? I'll go over all the rules, but you must never judge the literature. Okay? We're not here to tell, I'm not a big Neil Simon fan, but if somebody does Neil Simon, I don't automatically say, well, this is, and I'll give you another example in a few minutes. So I'm going to go through the categories. I'm going to hold extemp for last, and I'll go nice and slow. So do not feel bad about interrupting me. Just either put your finger up or just shout out. All right? I appreciate that.
Okay, so then before you go, sorry, what are you said, like, don't do 99, 98, 97, 96. What's an average score? I mean, we're not supposed to be failing kids, right? Like what?
Oh, I never go below 80. I never go below 80. You're allowed to go down to 70, but I personally have never given a kid below 80. I figure if you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning and you're trying your best, that you should get at least an 80. And that's not an insult. The thing is also, what you are responsible for is writing a ballot. You have to time, you have to rank them, and you have to write comments. That's the most cherished part about this. They want comments. We as coaches want comments because we can help them based on what you see. If a student is speaking too quickly, if the character isn't really well developed, if somebody is doing an Irish accent and it sounds like Italian, you can say, you don't sound Irish. Sorry. Keep working on the accent. You don't insult them, but certainly don't be afraid to give them positive feedback or even negative feedback with a nice twist to it. Half of the students on my team do not speak English as a first language. All right? They don't. So when they go up and they do their speeches, very often when they practice with me, I go, you're rushing. Or your enunciation, it's a little hard to follow. So, slow down. And then they'll come home on a Saturday and say, nobody told me I was too fast. And I'll be like, well, I'm telling you, you are. Don't be afraid to say that. Don't be afraid to give positive, constructive criticism that will help the student enhance their performance. Okay. Any shout outs before I go to the categories? Also, Frank just posted something. There's a booklet that we have. He posted the email address for it. It's our speech instruction book, handbook. And if before judging on Saturday you have more questions, I'll give you my email, but you can also download or read this booklet online, and it will tell you a lot of things about the comments, the criteria for how you're ranking them. Okay. So there it is in the chat from Frank. Okay. The first category I'm going to talk about is declamation. This is a freshman and sophomore only category. There are no juniors and seniors doing it. It is restricted to freshmen and sophomores. And I call this the introductory category. A student doesn't write anything or pick a work of literature. They pick a speech. A declamation is giving a speech that someone else has given at another time. Okay. It can be a political speech. You may be a Trumper and the student may speak about Hillary or vice versa. Do not decide that the material is bad. The student is to be judged on their ability to speak the meaning, to share the ideas of the author, etc., etc. Some of these are very funny. Conan O'Brien came and spoke at Stuyvesant's graduation a couple of years ago, and the first thing he did was insult Bronx Science. He made a joke about the rivalry between Stuyvesant and Bronx Science. The speech was very funny. Whether the kid delivering it was funny is a different story. Don't judge the speech. You may hate the speech. There are speeches that I hate, but you have to be objective about what the student does with them. And I want to share with you that a student is not supposed to imitate the speaker. In other words, if you're doing the Martin Luther King speech, you should not go, I have a dream today. No 15 or 16, 14-year-old speaks like that. They should be communicating the meaning of the speech. I have a dream today that someday, and the emotion and the truth of the speech comes through. It is not an acting category. You shouldn't be crying. It's not stand-up comedy. They're learning the art of speaking in front of an audience and being comfortable. Okay? And they're only freshmen and sophomores. Now, you're going to see last year's state champion, who was a freshman, come in as a sophomore. Don't be surprised if there's a vast range. I have some kids who are going for the first time on Saturday, and they'll be competing against kids who've been doing it for 2 years. Their points will vary. That's okay. And by the way, in all the categories, and again, I'll talk about extemp last, they watch each other. They know who's better than they are. And they know they're not like, oh, I hope the judge is a bad judge because then they won't know who to give the one to. We want you to do your best, try to evaluate them as best you can. And they know it too. You know, it may be a hard choice between 1 and 2. 3 and 4 are almost impossible because they're so close, but you have to call it. 5 and 6 are usually at the bottom, and it's easier to call those. If everybody is terrific, you can give a 1 with 98 and a 2 with 96 and a 3 with 95. They're really terrific. But don't tell them they're terrific if they're not, and don't be afraid to write comments that address the needs that you think as an evaluator they could learn from. Don't ever criticize the material. You don't criticize the material. It's not, they didn't write it, they didn't do it. Okay, so that's declamation. Now, in my team, a lot of the students, I have a lot of orators on my team, and they've delivered their speeches. So technically, a student who did original oratory last year can give their speech to a teammate or another school and say, here's a speech that was written by a 17-year-old. A lot of kids do that because they relate to the material better. Maybe they're not great TED Talks or speeches, but they relate to them because they were written by their classmates or their friends or people their own age. Do not decide that, you know, this kid's doing a better job because the speech is easier. There's no degree of difficulty in speech. You don't say to yourself in poetry, and I'll get to that in a minute, somebody is doing in poetry Shakespeare sonnets, and someone else is doing Horton Hatches the Egg. And you may think to yourself, oh, come on, Horton Hatches the Egg. But if the kid who's doing Horton Hatches the Egg holds your attention, does a great job, and is presenting it phenomenally, you can't say, well, the sonnets were harder. You're not there to judge the degree of difficulty or the quality of the literature, only the delivery. Okay? Now, I threw a lot out there, so let me take a break now. That's declamation again. Freshmen and sophomores, funny speeches, serious speeches, speeches by young people, speeches by political people, classical. Somebody could do the Gettysburg Address. That's a speech. Anybody? Did I lose anybody? Nobody? You all get what declamation is. And remember, they're young, so be kind. You're going to be kind anyway, because you need to be. All right, so that's declamation. And now I'm going to tell you one more thing about the way things go in speech. A student may begin their presentation by saying, in the following speech, Martin Luther King talks about a world where all people have equal opportunity. I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King. Somebody else doing another speech might give a little teaser, we call it. It's called a teaser. And they will do a little bit of the speech, a small part of the speech. 7 ago, our forefathers gave whatever, they do a little of, and then they say, the speech by Abraham Lincoln is an American classic. It talks about the Civil War and how America is going to get repaired. The Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln. And then continue. Neither one is right or wrong. Some people, once they get started, want to go right through, so they do the intro at the beginning. Some people like to test the waters a little, get themselves warmed up, take a break, and then do it. Either is correct. There's no right way to do it. Okay? If, however, you're watching a speech and they're 5 minutes into it and they haven't gotten to an intro yet, that's a problem. You need to know what you're listening to. It helps a lot. So, try to, make sure that they introduce it. You don't have to take points off necessarily for not giving an intro, but it is a part of the presentation. So I might say, well, I can't give you the one. You did a great job, but I didn't know what you were doing, or something like that.
So is giving the title also the introduction, or?
No, there has to be a little bit of an introduction.
So there has to be, it's required.
Yes, even if it's something cool. Like I had a boy who did Little Shop of Horrors. He did a little bit of the piece and then he went, a story of a boy and his plant, Little Shop of Horrors. So you knew the title, you had a sense of what it was about. The title may give you a longer explanation. The title may not give you a great explanation, but you should at least know what you're listening to. That's the minimum. Okay, there's only one category where you don't do an intro, and I'm going to talk about that next. That's original oratory. They write their own speech. This is called the black tie of speech and debate. And they write their own speech. So they wrote it. You can criticize the material. If a student is talking about nuclear war and then talks about his puppy, you may say, well, this doesn't go together. The speech jumps around a little. You can criticize them on the writing of it because they wrote it. If you can't follow it, don't blame yourself. When I was a beginning judge, I used to say, what's wrong with me? I have like a 3-minute attention span, and it wasn't that. I learned that they weren't holding my attention. So you can say that passage where you went from your dog to, whatever, didn't work for me. It didn't hold the story together. An oratory is a speech that a student writes. They can be freshmen and sophomores, but it's usually an upperclassman, junior and senior category. And they write about something that's important to them. They have a message. They don't just talk for 10 minutes or do stand-up comedy. They have a speech. And the speech should have a theme, and the theme should be supported by evidence or research. Okay? So it's very important. And again, if the writing is a little inconsistent or transition didn't work or you felt that it was too monotone, for example, a lot of these kids speak at one speed with no inflection, and it's like da-da-da-da-da-da. You can say you need more inflection, you need to take pauses, but this, you can criticize the material. You may not want to. Some of them are beautifully written. These kids are phenomenal. But don't be afraid to say, oh, I lost you. I mean, you might get lost. I get lost. If you have to work hard to hear it, it's not doing its job. Okay? So that's original oratory. And again, original oratory, once removed, is declamation, where you're doing someone else's oration. But a student in oratory has written their own piece. They are not doing someone else's speech. They're not using someone else's material. It's totally on them.
So they get judged on both, the delivery and the material?
They get judged on both, yes. But yes, I would say equally. Maybe a little more on the delivery. But if the writing makes no sense or the writing doesn't, it has to be a program that you can follow. So if you're listening to 10 minutes and you're like, I have no idea what you were taught, or you wouldn't say it that way, but you could say, listen, I really had trouble following you. You need to work on your delivery to make pauses so we know where you're going and whatever. I would say more on the delivery, but definitely both. They're both very big components.
And when you say we say this to them, you mean we write it down in the notes?
Write it on a ballot.
We're not.
Don't ever talk to these kids, because here's what happens. You're in the hallway and you see a kid who you thought was terrific and you go, wow, you were really good. And then a student who was in the round with him or her is like 3 feet behind and goes, "Oh my God, I was in that round. That judge didn't like me. They hated me because they didn't say anything to me." Don't ask the kids what school they're from. If you know them, that's fine. You should not be judging anyone from your own school, and you should definitely not be judging your own child. There may be a point where there's so many people from a certain school that we have to use their judges, but it will not be your own child. And when in doubt, ask us. If you have any questions about anything, there's a tab room on the 3rd floor near the judges lounge. Just come by and say, "I think I judged a Regis kid and my kid goes to Regis. Is that okay?" And we'll say yes. All right. You have
I
to
have
be
a,
there.
I have a question. So my understanding is, out of the 6 kids in the room, each of them could be doing different category of the speech, right? Not the
Different
same.
speeches.
Okay, good.
Different speeches. I mean, in some cases, they might choose the same material, and that happens sometimes.
Okay.
There was a time when there was a poem called Marriage, and it wasn't written in poem form, and a lot of the kids did it. So, you might see it, but everybody would do it differently. All right. I just want to make sure, and we'll review all this, I promise. We'll go through it again. Does everyone understand what original oratory is? Student writes it themselves. It can be funny, it can be serious. You can judge them on the material because they wrote it. It should be coherent and it should stick together. It should be cohesive, and it should resonate with you. If they're boring you, then that's part of the delivery, but it might also be the writing. You could say, "Listen, this was very serious. You might want to find a couple of places where, you can be lighter." You don't necessarily have, I mean, one of the girls did her mother's eulogy as an oratory, and we couldn't really tell her to make jokes. But it was a speech that she had given, and that's what she wanted to do. A lot of the judges had very mixed feelings about it because it didn't really have any research material and it didn't really have any backup material, but it was so moving that most of the parents loved it, and a lot of the judges who coach thought it didn't really meet the criteria. There's no right or wrong. You'll read what's on the ballot, it'll tell you what you're looking for, and you weigh it the way you want to weigh it. That's all. There's no right or wrong in this. I've never met anyone who deliberately, harmed a child or said, "Oh, that kid's from Stye and we're from Bronx and we're rivals." So it just doesn't happen. Everybody who comes in good faith with an open heart and does this activity for the love of the kids. And by the way, if your child or the person you're judging for is a freshman, in 4 years from now, you're not going to believe what you see. You're going to say that little freshman who stuttered and cried came back and gave a great speech in their senior year. One thing also about if one of the people are speaking, if a student speaks and they have a memory lapse, don't let them sit down. Don't let them give up. Tell them, "Go get your speech, read it, and I'll write comments about it." Don't let a kid give up. Okay? Really. It's okay. They'll be heartbroken, but they need to keep going. I mean, if they absolutely can't, you can't make them. And I would compliment them on, good for you for keeping going and something like that. You can say that in the round, but don't ever evaluate them like that was good, that made me cry, that, if you laugh or you cry, that's a natural response, but don't say that to them. Okay? Everybody with me so far? Okay, I'm going to the next category, which is prose and poetry. We will flip a coin at the beginning of the tournament, and it will either say heads poetry or heads prose. And the first round will be prose if it flips prose, and the second round will be poetry, and the third round will be prose, and the final round, it's 3 rounds and then a final, will be poetry. Okay? That's the way that it works. It's not all one or all the other. And you will be told as judges what round is happening. Like you'll be told in the first round, we will make an announcement saying, "Okay, first round is prose." Now, what is prose? It is not a play. It is not dialogue from a play. Prose can be a short story, a children's story, a chapter in a book, anything that is prosaic, not poetry. And it might be a combination of things, like a bunch of different chapters of a book pulled together as a program. It might be, you might read The Velveteen Rabbit. All of that's fine. I want to be very sure that you understand that you can't, you don't judge the literature. You just can't. And also, students may be using different voices. Okay. Like if they're reading a piece that has different characters, they can use different voices. The way that I was taught back then to judge reading OI, oral interp, was that you would imagine there was a screen in front of you and that the student was doing the interpreting through their voice, not through their hands, not through gestures, not through flapping, not using the book. This is a reading category, by the way. This is not memorized. They should refer to their script. Do not think that someone who's memorized is in better shape than someone who's not. They're supposed to be reading. It's called oral interpretation. And they should have about a 50% balance of looking at their script and looking up at the audience. Now, some of them have been doing it since September, and they may know some of them by heart. But if they do not look at their script, please mark it on the script, on the ballot, so that I or all the other coaches will know, because at nationals, you will be ranked down if you don't look at your script. It's one of the rules. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to rank it. If the person who's using their script is almost memorized and you think they're phenomenal, you can give them a 1, or if you want to say, look, you never looked at your script, I'm going to give you a 2. But please make sure you indicate on the ballot. That's very important for us as coaches. Okay. Prose can be very funny. People do Woody Allen stories. They do Irma Bombeck stories. They do stories from very funny Dave Chappelle. Is that his name? Short stories, chapters from their book. Poetry is not necessarily rhyming. It's very important for you to know that. Like Anne Sexton, who is a very famous poet, wrote all these fairy tales, and there's not one sentence that rhymes. And you may be listening to this and go, wow, this isn't poetry. It doesn't rhyme, but it does. If you have any question about the material, rank the round as you would, and then come and see us in the tab room and say, I just want to make sure, is this actually poetry? It has happened where a student got confused and read the wrong thing in the wrong round. If someone does, yes.
Sorry, quick question, because you keep saying, I just want to make sure. So if there's any issue, first and foremost, just do your whole round as it is, and then go to you after the round. Don't just say, hey, hold on.
Tell them they go overtime. If they ask, you can say yes, but they'll know from your fist whether or not they went overtime. If there's any question about the material, by all means, come and see us. Like, for example, if somebody's doing a play in oral interpretation of literature and they're doing Death of a Salesman, that's not prose. That's a play. You can rank it, but if you're pretty sure that it's a play, I would still rank it the way you saw it and then come to the tab room and we'll verify that there's no prose version of Death of a Salesman.
Okay, so
but to answer your question the way you were phrasing it, don't stop the round. Let the round finish. See everyone, rank everything, then come talk to us after the round is over. Don't stop in the middle of the round if you think there's a rules issue. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that's what I was asking. And then also for the fact, for example, like say there's a kid, my kid goes to Regis, say there's a kid, I have 3 kids from Regis in the room. Just do it. Just grade them all the way I should, and then come see you afterwards. Not say, stop, hey, wait a minute, guys, this isn't supposed to happen, and go see.
You might want to check in the tab room and say, there's a.
So I should do that before I start.
You'll know, so you will know ahead of time who you're judging, and like it might happen that one of the things I'll show when I go over the technology is how to register a standing conflict. Say your kid has a best friend and you really shouldn't be judging your kid's best friend either. There's a way to register that in the system. But if you see your list of students and you say, oh, there's some reason why I can't judge this person, come to us before the round. You will know who you're judging a half hour before the round is scheduled to start. And definitely if that kind of an issue comes up, you can let us know ahead of time. That would be before the round even starts, though, rather than stopping the round in the middle.
Yeah, you shouldn't stop. You should go right through it. The other thing that I want to say is don't, when a student, oh, I forgot my thought. I forgot. I'm sorry. I'll continue. In oral interpretation of prose, and poetry rather, again, it may not rhyme. It may be a collection of poems by one author. It might be a collection of poems about a topic. Some kids do love poems. Last year, one of the kids did mother poems and wrote poems that were written about moms, and he did a great job. Anything is fine, but you really should, it should tie together. It shouldn't be like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It should blend together. Like if you're doing Casey at the Bat and then you're doing an anti-war poem, I wouldn't say that they go together. In the introduction, the student will tell you what they're doing and what the theme is. And, you know, if you feel that a poem doesn't really fit the theme, by all means, you can say, you know, I felt like you got a little bit off with this one. It didn't quite fit in the way the others did. Or it may be perfect. It doesn't matter which. And again, it might be hilariously funny and it might be very serious. Very serious. It's important that you don't decide one is harder than the other. It's just important that you rank them on their delivery of it. Okay. By the way, Michelle, that was a great question. Okay. Any other questions though about prose and poetry? They have to use their binder. They need to look at their binder. Okay. Very important. It's a rule. All right. Everybody's with me? I'm going to go on to another category unless you have any questions about oral interp. Okay. Next category is drama. Okay. It's called dramatic interpretation, but it's dramatic and humorous combined. At the state level, they're separated, but for our league, they're in the same rounds together. Okay. And this is acting. This is not oral interpretation. This is, they can move around. They can change their body positions. They may be playing multiple characters. They may be doing a monologue. Don't decide that a monologue is easier because all they have to do is learn one thing. A monologue is incredibly difficult to sustain one character for 10 minutes. It's also difficult to play multiple characters cleanly. In other words, can you tell who's who? It's very important. So it's the delivery, how well it resonates with you. Did you understand the story? Was it well performed? Did you know who was who? Did you know what was going on? You don't have to love the play. You can even dislike the play immensely. That's okay. Don't blame the student. And they shouldn't be on the floor. You try to keep them, they could go down for like 2 seconds on their knees if they go down, but they're not supposed to be changing their position. They can walk around a little bit, but you have to be sure that when they're playing multiple characters, you know that there are multiple characters. They will say in the intro and the following, whatever. And you'll see the kids also do something called focal points. And let's say Oscar is talking to Felix in The Odd Couple. He might be, Felix, you're driving me crazy. And Felix might say, oh, Oscar, leave me alone. You know, you'll know which one is which. You'll be able to tell about the different characters. Some of these characters can be dogs. I mean, don't be surprised if somebody, I had a boy who won nationals who did 3 dogs in his piece. He was very funny. And each dog was different. They weren't just normal, regular, run-of-the-mill dogs. It was very funny. But it wasn't because he portrayed 3 dogs and they were all different and they all had a personality and they all had different gestures and things like that. That has to be made clear. You have to be able to distinguish between the characters. Okay. I find this really hard to judge only because, you know, they're so different, humorous and drama, but you just judge the performance and you'll be able to tell who's doing a really great job. You'll know. You'll know. Please don't ever say, I didn't like this material. And by the way, I don't allow this on my team, but a couple of the perks of literature that you're going to hear have a few F-bombs in them. I don't allow my students, I make them change it. However, some coaches don't. If a student drops an F-bomb in a piece of literature that they didn't write, you could write on the ballot, I wish you didn't do that, but you cannot rank them down for it. You can't say that was too vulgar, that was disgusting, I don't want to hear a high school student use that kind of language. None of that. There's no punishment. Okay? And the same thing is true in oratory. I want to go back to oratory. You may find what they're talking about, something that resonates with the student, to be something that you're just not in favor of. Like the student could write about how frustrating it is not to have a phone in school. And you may be sitting there going, oh, I'm so glad they don't have phones in school. But if they give a great speech and they support it and they make their point, they've done their job. Okay? So drama and humor and drama, dramatic performance, a lot of fun to judge, fully memorized. If they have a memory lapse, you can tell them to go get their script as well and to use their script to perform. But they may not be obviously ranked against the people who have their pieces memorized. You have to put them at the bottom. If two people don't have their pieces memorized, you can't put them both last. One of them is going to have to be stronger than the other. Okay? That can happen sometimes, by the way. That's not an unusual situation. Although at this point in the year, it's a little more unusual. At this point, they pretty much know their material. Okay. The next category I'm going to talk about is duo. That is two people acting a scene or a portion of a play. It does not only have to be two characters. Like if they're doing a piece like, I don't know if any of you knew of the play Gutenberg, but that was done on Broadway. And the two guys who did it played like 20 characters each. If they can differentiate and they can do that, that's great. Each one plays a part in the duo. And while it doesn't have to be exactly 50-50, it should be that there isn't one superstar in the duo and the other person just kind of phones it in. It should be 60-40. But if somebody's doing 90% of the performing and someone's doing only 10% and they're phenomenal, but somebody is doing 50-50 and they're really good, I would rank higher the kids who work together. It's not a showcase for one student. It's a duo. Now, a funny rule about duo is they're not allowed to look at each other except in the introduction. How crazy is that? They're not supposed to look at each other. So you might see them glancing towards, but they should not be making direct eye contact with each other. And if they do, please put that on the ballot. It's against the rules. And again, how you weigh it, I can't tell you how to incorporate it into the round, but it is against the rules. And they should be able to, at this point, stage it so that they're not breaking the rules. Okay? They may have multiple characters, multiple characters. If you're confused, please put that on the ballot because chances are you're confused because they weren't clear. Don't be afraid to say things like that. Like, I couldn't follow you, or you lost me, or, I really like this part, but the next part, I didn't follow where you were going with it. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? So that's duo interpretation. And it's a lot of fun to watch. It's really a lot of fun to watch. It's good. It's fun to watch two people, and they can be very dramatic. Just be prepared for that. Okay, the last category, I'm going to go back to extemp because I think that's the hardest to judge, and I'll spend a little more time on it, but I want to keep you guys moving. Is everybody with me so far? Is there anything you have a question about? Good. All right, but don't be shy. The last category, okay, is called programmed oral interp. It's a new category. We've only been doing it for 2 years, and nobody knows exactly what it is yet. We're kind of writing the rules as we go. But basically, the rules are a student takes material from various genres, from a play, from a newspaper article, from a TV program, from a movie, from all these, from a poem, from a piece of journalism, a TED Talk, and they base it around a program. It might be the programmed oral interpretation should revolve around a theme, okay? It should have something in common, and it should should go together as a program. It shouldn't be like, every man for himself and you're all over the place. The POI is very, as I said, it's very new, and they shouldn't be doing like 8 minutes of a poem and then 30 seconds of it should be really, I call it the mishmash.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit lost here.
Okay.
What was the name again of the whole thing?
Programmed Oral Interp. POI. It's oral interpretation of literature with different genres. It doesn't have to be just prose or poetry or a play or a movie or a newspaper article. It can be any combination of those things that come together as a theme. It's a very small category. Usually we only have 5 or 6 kids doing it. Maybe there'll be a few more now, but it's a very beginning category. And you sort of judge it the way that you judge all the other categories, on the performance of the student. But again, the student puts the material together. So if you don't think it feels like a program, you should say that. I like this poem and I like that piece, but I didn't really see what they had in common. That's often the case. Did that answer your question, Claudia?
Yeah, so they have to have a common theme that you call program.
Program, right. Something has to hold all that material together. It can be song lyric. It can come from virtually almost anything, but it can't just be a whole bunch of things that have nothing in common. You should be able to understand what the program is about.
And does this program does not include like something they wrote themselves, right?
They can, but it should be mostly what other people write. They can, right, Frank? Isn't that allowed?
Yeah. So they're allowed to write some transition material, but what they're really doing, and the place where they're being very creative, is how they string everything together. I think we mentioned with poetry and prose poetry, there might be multiple poems that they're reading, but in that case, they'll just read one poem, read another. This one, they're really splicing things together and doing very creative things where they'll be in the middle of a song lyric, and that song lyric will perfectly transition into some essay or something like that. So it's really, there is a lot of creativity in there. It's not so much that it's their own words, but it's their own way of taking a bunch of pieces and blending them into something totally new.
And because they've put it together, you don't judge them on the material, but you judge them on how the material came together. Like at the end, you say, wow, some of this was really strong. Some of this I might have lost you. Or this was a phenomenal program. I don't know how you got all those things to fit into one piece. Don't be afraid to tell them that you didn't think everything fit in. Okay? What's going on, Fan? Oh, sorry. Okay. That's POI. And it's very new. It's very innovative. And it's kind of exciting because it's a little bit of everything. And they may bring different rules to it. For example, they might act out the drama part. They might sing the musical part. They might read a poem. They might become very newspaperish and read an ad. They might be a newscaster and deliver news. All of that should fall together, though.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, I said no matter what they present, it can be presented from different genres or different points of view. Like they may begin by singing Amazing Grace, and then they might read a eulogy. That would be very creative. They can use all these different genres: music, poetry, newspaper, prose, song lyrics, TV shows. And it doesn't have to be like 2 minutes of each. It can be 3 minutes of one and 1 minute of the other, but it should blend. I know it's hard to wrap your head around because it's not exactly following rules the way the other ones do, but it's got its own thing.
Must it all be?
I highly recommend. I just want to say, if you're not judging the first round tomorrow, I highly recommend that you watch one.
I'm sorry. Can they have notes for this or no?
No.
For this type. So no books or anything.
No, okay. I mean it's read out of a binder, similar to the prose poetry.
Wait. So it's not memorized.
POI is not memorized.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
And they will use the binder, even they're allowed to use the binder as a prop too, which is different from what you'll normally see in prose poetry. So sometimes the binder is not just something that they're reading from, but they'll incorporate it into their performance somehow. It's a steering wheel of a car, or it's a pillow that they're sleeping on, or something like that. They're very creative with physicality too.
So they have to have a binder in their hands and they have to read.
Yes.
Okay.
As they do an oral interpretation of literature.
So do they have to be animated? Like, I know a lot of times you say, oh, it'll add to it, but are there rules to that? Like, are they supposed to be
No, I
animated?
mean, it's how well they perform it and does it resonate with you? I mean, it might be boring. I'm not suggesting that it would be, but if it's like, you're like, well, you know, this was nice, but I didn't really feel any energy or any real interpretation, or it's okay to say that. I mean, don't say you're bad or don't give negative comments, but if you felt that the material, you can say, I think you're so talented. I wish I had seen more emotion with you. It's perfectly fine to say that. You know, like, or you stayed on one emotion through the whole piece. And so it didn't have enough variety. If you want to hold our attention, give us a little more. You look through the judging booklet and you will be able to figure out comments. And again, I'll be there on Saturday talking you through the categories, having questions. I'll be able to answer them. So after tonight, if you're like, oh my God, what did she say? Email me or write down what you want to ask, and I'll be there on Saturday. All right, I'm going to go to extemp because poor Frank has to still do the other part of this. So I want to make sure I go there.
The last category we were talking about was POI.
Oh, POI. But it stands for Programmed Oral Interp. It's programmed. They put a program together. That's how you remember it. They're putting a program together. You okay there, Mrs. Diaz?
I'm just taking the note, putting a program together.
Okay. If you want to stay later or you want to talk more, you know, I'll be here.
Okay.
All right. So extemporaneous speaking. These kids are given 30 minutes to prepare a speech, and then they have to give it, and it's a 7-minute speech. This is the only category that's not 10 with a 30-second. And I also want to add that there are no minimum times in the categories, but if somebody's doing an oral interp poetry and they're doing 3 minutes, you can't really compare that to someone who's doing 9. You have to weigh whether they really fulfilled the category. I mean, there's no minimum, but I do think that if you feel that you didn't get enough, you should say that on the ballot.
So out of all of them, what's the average then? Because I mean, some are 10 minutes.
Poetry is always usually the shortest, but most of them are about 10 minutes. Some of them are 9.5 minutes. If they're going below 8 minutes in a 10-minute category, they're kind of coming a little bit below, but it's not mandatory. Like if something is 7 minutes and 58 seconds and you think it's phenomenal, don't penalize them for that. But if it's 3 minutes and they've hardly done anything, you can say, well, look, I can't really evaluate this against the other pieces.
Okay.
You look confused. You got it?
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
You got it. Thanks.
Extemporaneous speaking. These kids are given 30 minutes to give a speech. And the speeches will all be in a similar category. Like it might be people in the news. It might be the economy. It might be economics. It might be the upcoming election. It might be government. It might be Social Security. It might be banking. And all of them will get a question. They will not get the same question. They will each get a different question in a similar area. They will pick them one at a time. The first person, there are 3 choices. They pick the one they want. They put another one out. The second person has 3 choices all the way through the 6th person. And they come into the room alone. They are not in the room with other speakers. So you're going to be in the room alone with a child who's going to hand you the topic that they're answering, the question that they're answering. Okay? And then this is really important with the time because, as I said, they have never given this speech before and they have to know where they are. Okay? Some of them have a really good internal clock, but you still have to give it to them. The most common request is 2 down. So if it's 7 minutes, I'm going to review it again. After 2 minutes, you've got your hand up for 5. And then every minute, I suggest you bring a stopwatch. I suggest you bring not a watch with a second hand because, you know, you might get lost because sometimes they look so close to each other. I will say this. If for some reason a student goes 8 minutes, but you did not give them their time, you can't penalize them. They're entitled to know their time. If it's an error, give the kid the benefit of the doubt. Okay? Now, so they're going to give the question. Now, extempors can be really eloquent. Okay? They can be smooth. They can sound like broadcasting geniuses. They're great. There's JV extemp and varsity extemp. All right? So you might be they're not mixed together. So you might be seeing a round of JVers and you might be seeing a round of varsity kids. That's also true, by the way, I didn't mention it in oral interp. There's freshman and sophomore category, and then there's the junior and senior category. Okay. In extemporaneous speaking, the most common question I get is, well, how do we rank them? And the answer is, did they answer the question? I don't care how eloquently they spoke. They have to answer the question. If the question is, you know, are we going to go to war with Venezuela? Then that student might give you an introduction and then might give you some what we call areas of analysis. It is not required. There is no one formula for extemp speech. People tend to give an introduction and then areas of analysis because it's easier to follow that way. My first point is this. My second point is that. My third point is that. Some students don't do that. They just say, I'm going to, you know, are we going to go to war in Venezuela? And they'll give you information on why they think so or not. Okay? You should be able to follow the speech. They should pinpoint where they're going. It shouldn't just be like people talking at you and you're not really sure what they're talking about. It has to be very organized. Organization is a big part of an extemporaneous speech. How well organized is it? And did they answer the question? And in the end, the last few words or sentences that the students say, so, you know, in conclusion, I'd like to say that because of this, this, and that, or for the following reasons, or because of reasons I explained, yes, the United States is probably going to go to war with Venezuela. Now, you may hate hearing that, and you may disagree, and you may love the idea or whatever. Again, you don't have to agree with these kids. They are supporting their positions with articles from the New York Times, Newsweek, Time. You know, they're supporting their arguments. And so if they can support their argument or support their position, okay, then you have to acknowledge that they've done their job. Okay. If they say something that you read the Times that morning and you say, whoa, that's not what that article said, you can say, you know, I read that article. I thought it said something else. Okay. But these kids are really great at what they do. They're terrific. And they're going to answer the question. You must give them their time. Okay? If they talk too quickly, they might move around the room. They might just stand and stare at you. You know, the delivery is really important. Are they giving you variety? Are you following along? Is it like a roadmap so you can follow the speech? Okay? And again, remember, this is the hardest to judge because you are timing them for sure. And the passage of time is a lot. It's almost every minute. And you are writing a ballot. And you are judging. Now, I want to give you a couple of tricks. First of all, when I judge a round, what I usually do is I say, well, the first person spoke. So I put on a little side piece of paper, that person was the one. They're the one because they're the only one who spoke. Then the second person speaks, and I go, well, that kid wasn't as good as the first person. So I'm going to make it 2-1. And then the third person speaks, and they blow the room away. They're phenomenal. So I'll be like 1, 3, 2. If you rank them as you go along, it'll make it easier for you. You do not have to turn in your ballots comments right away. If you want to take notes between rounds, you can write comments, but your ballots must be turned in the minute the round is over, or we can't run the tournament. So when you go into the round, and I'm going to let Frank take over in a minute, you're going to push start. You're going to have a Tabroom account. You're going to make sure everybody's there, and you're going to write comments. And again, you must bring some sort of laptop. It's very hard to write comments on a cell phone. So if you have a laptop, that would be very helpful. And if you have any kind of a cell phone for timing, that will be very, very, very helpful. Okay, I kind of went through the categories. So let's take a moment and just see if there's anything you can look over your notes, see if there's anything you're confused about or anything you're not clear about. I also forgot to tell you, this is fun. I know it really is fun. Seeing these kids is wonderful. They're great. They're so terrific. Getting up at 6:30 on a Saturday morning to speak about politics or to give a speech about something or to act for you or perform for you. It's really wonderful. And it could not happen without you. So I just want you to remember that you're such an important part of this whole thing. So thank you. Now, will you put, what Frank wrote is true. Between rounds, there's a little bit of a break. So you can plug your ballots, the comments in between the rounds. Okay? The comments are not as important as the ranks and the points. Okay? Anything else you think I need to hit on, Frank?
Just one general thing as far as all of you feeling a little bit nervous about doing this for your first time. There is no wrong way to judge a round, and the kids will be seen by multiple judges throughout the day. So each round, unless you get selected to judge a final round, each round will only have one judge, but there are 3 rounds back to back. There'll be three different sets of kids that each one is competing against, 3 different judges. This is an inherently subjective activity, and there is no wrong way to do it. So as long as you're putting your best effort, pay attention to what they're saying, and if you can justify how you've made that decision, you'll be fine.
Right,
and I know we gave you a lot of details about rules and technicalities. Most of those things, they do occasionally come up, and it's important to know them. The vast majority of your rounds will go off smoothly. You won't have to worry about anyone going over time or violating any rules. Just try to get absorbed into the presentations and give them your attention.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Sorry, I know I have so many questions. I'm sorry, I'm that person.
We love your questions.
I apologize. But so for extemp, do they have to do an intro, like saying their question? Like, is there a rules again about that stuff? Or
Well, they usually don't begin by saying, "This is my topic." They usually begin by saying, there's been a lot of tension in the Caribbean islands because of, they'll usually introduce the topic and then say, not that they all will, which leads me to the question, will we go to war in Venezuela? And I'd like to give you 3 reasons why I think they will or they won't. And then in the end, they summarize. There's no real formula, though. It's just, they have to make it clear to you, though. And at the end, you have to know what their answer was. They can't take both sides. They can't say, well, maybe they'll be, well, I can't tell. They have to answer it. They have to answer the question.
And Julie, they have to hand the question to the judge so that we know that they're actually answering the question that they were given.
Yes, absolutely, Neil. Absolutely.
What did you say? They have to give us a paper?
When they do extemp, they draw. Remember, I said they draw a topic when they go into the preparation room, and each student is given 3 choices of a topic. They will pick a topic, spend 30 minutes preparing it, and when they come in to give you the speech, they will hand you that piece of paper, and you will know the title of what that speech is about.
So they give us a piece of paper.
Right.
And what do we do with that? Do we have to give it to you guys?
Eat it. No, I'm just kidding. No. You don't have to give it to us. Unless there's but make sure that what's on the paper is what they answer.
Okay. And then also for when you're writing all the notes out, you have to note, hey, this is what their question was. And this is.
You just put it in the, no. I mean, it'll have a space for a title, so you can put it there.
And it's not important that you get every single, some of these questions, I shared a link to some past questions. Some of these questions can be rather long. It's more a matter of just giving them a reference point, because what they're going to want to do when they see their feedback on Monday back at school, they won't remember what their speech was. So if you wrote down, war in Venezuela as the question. Then they'll remember, oh yeah, I remember that round, and it'll just help them put things into context.
And if a student walks into the room and they do not have their slip of paper, you send them back to the extemp room, the prep room. They must have the question.
Right. It's ocular proof. Othello.
So what do you do then? Just go to the next person?
No, you wait.
And then the next person walks in with their piece of paper. In all the other rounds, the kids are all present. Okay. But in extemp, they come in one at a time. They don't hear each other because they're each writing their own speech and they shouldn't be influenced by what other people are saying. So they each have their own take on the topic.
Can they read a little bit, or is
Great question. In JV extemp only, they may read from a note card which has 50 words, right? It's not varsity, right, Frank?
Yeah, just JV, and yes, 50 words or fewer.
And if for some reason you see the student and they're reading it and they're reading it and they're reading it and they're reading it, you might ask for the card. They can't write the whole speech on the card. They can just write key points, no more than 50 words. If you feel like it's more, you can ask to see it. And if you have any question, don't question the kid, just bring it to the Tabroom. You ready, Frank?
Quick question, if I may.
Sure.
When exactly does the time? When do we start timing them?
The minute they speak. The minute the first word comes out of their mouth.
Copy that.
So a lot of the students, what they'll do is they'll take a breath, they'll collect themselves. You can let them take that breath. You don't need to start the clock as soon as they're in the front of the room. So when they first start speaking, that's when you start the timer.
And especially in some of the interpretive categories, the kids take a moment to sort of gather their thoughts and become the characters, not until a word is spoken. Unless they're starting to act physically and like they're playing a cleaning person and they're sweeping and they're doing something that's in the character, then it's as soon as the movement starts. If they're doing something that is not their normal, natural movement and it's part of the piece, that's when you start the clock.
You'll get to see it'll be very apparent when they've started as opposed to if they're just standing there getting ready to start.
I'm gonna put my email up there.
What should one do if someone suspects they're having a medical episode?
Immediately email the Tabroom and get somebody to help.
Yeah, so my phone number, I'm at almost every tournament. At least this weekend I'll be there. My phone number will be on your ballot. It will be on several other pieces of information that we share with you. Contact me at that number immediately, and we'll see what we can do from there.
I would like to add that if a student has a nosebleed and has to leave the room, you should let them do their piece again. It's not their fault. It's not like they stopped because they had a memory lapse. It's they had a medical issue, and I would give them another chance to do the whole speech. Right? Would you, Frank? I would.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the student asks to leave because of whatever medical, still let us know because we need to make sure that their coach knows about it. There was an incident at the Bronx Science Tournament. A student had an allergic reaction, and someone gave him an EpiPen. And then he just stayed competing again until he had another allergic reaction later in the day. And only then did someone tell the tournament about that, and we were able to get in touch with his coach. So if there's a serious issue, let the tournament know. We'll make sure to get in touch with the student's coach because these are kids after all, and we're responsible for their safety.
Okay, I'm going to say goodnight and turn you over to Frank. He's our master technician. But I want to thank you again for coming. And I know it's a little daunting. It's a little scary. I still remember the first round I judged. I was awful. Okay. So please know that
before Frank jumps in, I also know from reading a lot of the literature and a lot of the rules that some of the kids are performing dual, and you have to allow them to leave to go to the next.
Oh, if they're double entered.
Yes.
Well, if they're double entered, they will either go to your room first and the other event sixth. If they're not there, then they're going to be last in your round. Start the round, don't wait for them. And when they get there, you have to wait for them.
It's not that common that students will be double entered at our local tournaments. We do allow some limited amount of double entry at the local tournaments. You'll see that a lot more if you end up judging at one of the bigger invitationals. But exactly that, give the kids the benefit of the doubt. If they say they need to leave early to go to another round, let them speak first, then go to the other round. If they're not there at the start of the round, one of the things I'll go through, like what the start of the round looks like. But if you're getting ready to start and you're supposed to have 6 people, but you only have 5, you can start. You don't have to wait for the 5th person to show up. Don't start worrying and notifying us in the tournament office until about 10 minutes after the scheduled start time. So after whoever the first person you have there speaks, let them finish. And then if you're still missing someone, then you can message us and we'll try to make sure that the student isn't lost somewhere. Usually by then, whoever you're missing will have arrived.
And also, I will say, Regis puts out the most magnificent spread of food ever. So don't eat a big breakfast. They put out a great breakfast too, but pace yourself because Grandma Julia and her folk make the most wonderful food ever. And so you're going to have a good time. You really will. Okay. Good night, Frank.
Yes. Sorry, just one last question. I'm so sorry. But if the kids arrive late, like 10 minutes, or is that a penalty or no?
Nope.
Okay.
Not at all.
There may be a train delay, there may be traffic, there may be an accident. Okay. If you have to start the round, they would know not to walk in the middle of someone's piece. They would wait till they hear the clapping of somebody finishing and then they would come in. And they might say, I'm sorry, I had a train delay or whatever. No, you don't penalize them.
I have a thing. How about informative speaking that I have here in my notes? We haven't.
So we don't offer that in the New York League.
Oh, okay.
So if you end up judging at some of the invitationals, that is another category. It's similar to original oratory, except it's educational in nature, and they are allowed to have visual aids. So they might have a poster board. They might have they can be very creative with the visual aids. I've seen one person who was giving a speech on how to play the violin, and she had a violin with her to use as an illustration. But it's very similar to oratory. That's something they've written themselves. They are educating you on some topic. And in that case, because they have the visual aids, you can also judge them on how well they incorporate those visual aids. Does it add to the piece? Is it a distraction? Could they use them more effectively? Other than that, it's the same thing as you're looking for an oratory. Did they deliver it well? Did the material flow together? Did you learn something that you didn't know before? That's that sort of thing. But we don't have that locally at the New York League.
Okay.
Please email me if you have any questions. I'll see you Saturday morning. I'll be there early. If you're concerned about anything, we'll meet and we'll talk about it. Okay? Thank you all so much for coming. It means so much to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie, very much.
Hey,
hi, Penny.
Thank you. Thank you.
Night.
See you guys.
Okay, so I know we've been through already about an hour and a half of material, so just bear with me for a few more minutes for some last important things. I'm going to explain a little bit about the technology of how the weekend works. So first and most important thing, this website, tabroom.com. Tab stands for tabulation. In the good old days, people were actually sitting in a room called the tab room, adding up numbers on pieces of paper. These days, the computer does all that for us, and tabroom.com is the website that makes it happen. So I'll paste a link to that in the chat. If you haven't done so already, please sign up for an account on Tabroom. So I already have an account. I'm signed in. My email address shows up here. But if I was not signed in, it would say sign up for an account. Click that, fill out the form, and then let the coach of your school know which email address that you use to create that account. Then your coach will be able to sign you up to judge for the tournament. The other important website to have is the NYCFL website. This is our league's homepage. And the important part you might want to look at is this section on resources. So I already shared a link to this judge's handbook and judging extemp. There's some other things in here like the Constitution, the bylaws. If you're interested in learning about debate, even though we're talking about speech, there's a debate manual, and then there's some links to other useful resources, all on nycfl.org. If you've already signed up for Tabroom and been registered, you might have received an email mentioning something called the live doc.
We
If not,
lost you if you're speaking.
did you?
Say again.
Is that true?
No, we can't hear you. Where are you, Frank? Can you hear us, Frank?
They can't see it because you're sharing a page. You're gonna have to speak up because they cannot see it because you're sharing the page.
I'm trying to figure out why. Is my sound working any better now?
Much better.
Okay, not sure what that was. Sorry about that. Let me know if I need to repeat anything, but I'm mainly just sharing these links. So you may have already received an email about something called the live doc. And if you haven't already, you will receive an email about something called the live doc. This is a shared Google document that we use throughout the day to communicate with you, to put in some important announcements. So this weekend we are at Regis, and if you're judging Congress, you'll also be at Loyola, which is right across the street. From this document, you'll be able to see things like the schedule and the times of all the rounds, as well as other important information, how to get onto the internet, what events are having double entry possibly, and some other information here.
Where would you find this?
So it will be emailed to you, and it will also be available from Tabroom. So if you are signed up for the tournament, when you're in the I don't have an example here because I'm not signed up to judge this tournament, but if you're in this upcoming judges page on your Tabroom account, you will see a link to the live doc once it's been shared. But we also email it out through the tournament multiple times throughout the weekend. At the top of this document, not right now, but on Saturday morning, we will post something called the judge chart. So you'll look down here, usually, yeah, right here, judge chart. We'll replace this to be determined with a link. This is an example. This is from several weeks ago, so don't treat this as anything definitive for this weekend, but it will give you a sense of what one of these looks like. So listed by name, it will tell you which rounds you're scheduled to judge. And I always get questions about what all this means. The letters will be an abbreviation for the category you're judging. For example, DP is dramatic performance, VPO is varsity poetry, duo interp, varsity extemp. So those will give you a sense of what all the events are. These other two numbers are irrelevant for you. The first number here is just the round number. So everything here is round one. You'll notice it's all one. The second is the section number. The section number just means that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rooms of this category, and it's telling you which section you're judging. That doesn't mean anything to you. It's just the way this report is printed. What's relevant to you is which room you're actually judging in. That we do not publish at the beginning of the morning because we might have to make some adjustments throughout the day. We'll send those to you throughout the day about a half hour before each round is scheduled to start. So another link I will share with you is this ballot example. So this, I'm going to go through what a ballot looks like, and I'll show an example of what a speech ballot looks like and what a Congress ballot looks like. So under your Tabroom account, if you click upcoming ballots, you will have a current assignment. And normally you'll only see one thing here at a time. This is just for illustrative purposes. And it will tell you what you're judging. In this case, OBT stands for online ballot training, but it could also be declamation, prose, poetry, drama, whatever that is. Will tell you what room you're going to as a number. So Regis, luckily, is a relatively easy school to navigate. The rooms are all numbered with 3-digit numbers. 100s are on the first floor, 200s, 300s, 400s on the floors. We'll tell you the start time of the round, and we'll give you the number codes of each of the students in your room. So there may be 5, there may be 6, there may be 7 people in your room. you'll see these numbers here. You're not expected to know anything about these numbers. It's just telling you how many people are in your room. What's really important is that you click this button. We have the ability to change what this button says. Sometimes it will say start, sometimes it will say acknowledge, sometimes it will say on my way. Whatever it says, it signals to us in the tournament office that you know you have this ballot. So clicking that on our side, what we have is a list of all our judges with check boxes next to them. And when you click this button, your name turns green. We are very happy, and we know we don't have to worry about you. If you don't click this button and your name stays red, we start panicking. And about 5 minutes before the round is supposed to start, we're frantically calling you and texting you, trying to figure out where you are. If we can't get in touch with you, we even might end up assessing a fine, a monetary fine to your school if you miss the round. So the easy way to make that not happen is as soon as you see this ballot, which again will be about 30 minutes before the scheduled round time, refresh your Tabroom account and click this button. Once you click the button, it will take you into the ballot. So this is what a speech ballot looks like. Again, you'll see those number codes, but here you'll also see the students' names. As Julie mentioned, for everything except extemp, all the students should come to you at once. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take attendance. If there's 6 students on your ballot and 6 students in the room, make sure that they are the right 6 students. Because sometimes what happens is maybe Sylvia is actually 2616 instead of 2661, and she read the schedule wrong and she's in the wrong room. So just double check that the right students are in the room. Again, if you're missing someone, so if you're supposed to be judging 6 students, but you only have 5, that's not a reason to panic right off the bat. You can get started with whatever 5 students you have. If the first student finishes speaking and then you still haven't seen whoever was missing, that's the point at which you want to message me. And like I said, my phone number will be on this ballot. It's also at the top of this live doc. That's when we'll start trying to track down that student. As they go, there's a place to write down their title or their question. So title for most of the events, question if they're doing extemp. You'll spend most of your time on this bottom section for feedback. I strongly recommend that you don't actually, you can type in here and write out your comments in there. I strongly recommend you don't do that and instead have something like Word or Apple Notes or whatever your preferred software is on your computer. Write everything into there and then copy and paste it into the ballot when you're done. We've had too many issues where there's a bit of Wi-Fi spottiness in the school. You type up paragraphs of text in here, you click save, the Wi-Fi network kicks you off, and then all your comments vanish into the ether. We don't want that to happen. Your students want to get your feedback. So I would recommend you write everything up somewhere else and then paste it into here when you're done. When you first come down here, you'll see that this is selected to go to everyone. We don't usually write too much into this ballot in speech, but as it suggests, anything you write in this box, a copy of it will go to all 6 of the students. Most of what you're going to be writing, though, is feedback for an individual student. So you can pick Sylvia, say, as she's performing, and then what you write in this box will go only to Sylvia and her coaches. This material isn't released to students until the end of the tournament. So it's not like Sylvia's not going to be getting live updates of what you think about her speech as she's speaking. They won't find out that till after the tournament is over. But that's the way this works. And you can click save as many times as you want to save your feedback. When the round is over, you're going to want to give your ranks and points. So ranks go from 1, in this case, 1 to 6, 1 being best, 6 being least best. And points, the official scale of points, we actually won't let you type in anything lower than 75, but as Julie said, it's usually a good idea to stay between 80 and 98, say. So for illustrative purposes, I'm going to make up some ranks. Let's say we thought Sylvia was best, Fletcher was second best, maybe Carlos was third, Christopher was fourth, Dulcie was fifth, and Joy was sixth. And we'll also give some points that are commensurate with those. So let's say Sylvia was maybe a 97. Maybe it was really close between Sylvia and Fletcher. You had a really hard time making that decision. It's okay if their points are also very close together. Then maybe there was a more pronounced difference between Fletcher and Carlos. So I'll give Fletcher, say, a 94. Question in the chat from Raymond, how many points can we give? So for speech, the scale is right here, 75 to 100, but you generally don't want to give 100 and you don't want to give below 80. And I think, Raymond, if I remember correctly, I think you were in the Congress meeting. So I'll show an example of the Congress ballots later. The Congress points are totally different from this. But in speech, the point range is 75 to 100. So we'll say that Carlos was a 94. Maybe also Carlos and Christopher were very close together. So we'll give Christopher maybe a 93. And then maybe it was really clear that these top four were really strong performers and there was a bit of a difference between them and our 5 and 6. So maybe then we'll jump down to say an 88 and an 87. So this is an example of filling out the ballot. Question in the chat. Do we have time between each student to write comments? You can take a minute or so to finish up the sentence you're writing, but generally we want to keep the round flowing. And yes, the students should speak in the order that they're listed on this ballot, unless of course someone is missing or double entered. So if someone's double entered, let's say Christopher was double entered, he might ask you to speak first, and then please do accommodate him. And if, say, Sylvia is supposed to speak first, but she hasn't gotten there yet, you can start the round with Carlos at 9 o'clock, and Sylvia should get there later. So you don't have specific time in between each student to finish comments, but you can write your comments and edit them up until the end of the tournament. So we'll practice filling out our ballot. Once you filled out your scores, you'll click submit. You're not done yet. So now what it will do is it will ask you to confirm that this is how you meant to rank things. And you can look at this and say, yes, okay, definitely. I think Sylvia was best. Fletcher was second. Carlos was third. Christopher fourth. Dulcie was fifth. Joyce sixth. Yes, this looks correct. And notice now they're listed in the order you ranked them, not the order in which they spoke.
And what happened with the rest? Because you have only 6.
There were only 6.
Only 6. So you don't have 7, 8 people. No.
Not in this round. You might generally we don't go up to 7 or 8, but it's possible you might have more than 6. It's possible you might have fewer than 6, but you're only ranking whoever was in your round. So in this example round, there were just 6 people. So let's say now you're looking at this and you think, oh, you know, I was on the fence about Carlos and Christopher. Now that I think about it, I think Christopher was a little bit better than Carlos. You can click the red button and come back here and fix your ballot. So let's make Christopher the 3, Carlos the 4. And of course, if we do that, we need to update the points accordingly. So 93 and a 94. We can submit again. And then if we click yes, that completes your obligation for this round. You will be able to, if we come back to, if we come back to the beginning of this process. I don't have an example on this. This is a mock-up that I made for teaching purposes, so it doesn't actually work. But on your actual Tabroom, next to where it says current ballots, there'll be a tab that says past scores and feedback. That is where you can click if you want to go in and edit your comments for the students you've just seen. It's very important that we get your results, your ranks, points, and speeches as soon as possible after the last student has finished speaking, but you have until the end of the day to finish your commentary. Any questions about the speech ballot before I go on to a Congress example?
Frank, did you say I'm actually in Tabroom? When I click on judge and nothing shows up, so there's nothing there for me for now, right?
So you won't see any ballots here. Do you see the Regis Loyola tournament though?
Yes, I do see that. Correct.
Okay, then that means you are set up correctly. We will release these to you half an hour before each round. So the first round on Saturday will be at 10 o'clock. So actually, the very first round, we start with an opening meeting in the auditorium. So we will release ballots as soon as that meeting is finished. For all the other rounds, say the round starts at 11:30, by 11 you would see what your ballot is for that round.
Okay.
Question in the chat about the timer. Yes, it does. The timer will go into the negative. To be honest, I never use this timer. I find it easier to either use a real stopwatch or use the timer function on my cell phone. It is there if you want to use it. And yes, if you were to let this run past 10 minutes, it'll start going into the negative so that you can see how far past the grace period they go. But I usually don't like using this stopwatch. I just find it easier to have a physical one. You can look at the physical one and hold up your time signals more easily, in my opinion. It's up to you if you want to use this. Another question in the chat about how to judge extemp doesn't work. There was a second, I posted the link twice. The second link should work. And yeah, I can share a link to the live doc to those of you who don't have it. Any other questions about the speech ballot? Okay. Not hearing any. And if I'm not mistaken, I think all of our Congress people have now left. So maybe I won't go through the Congress ballot unless anyone really wants to see what a Congress ballot looks like.
Can you show us, sorry, can you show us where to put our notes? Because you said you have to go back afterwards. Oh, wait, you just said you couldn't do that.
I can't show an example, but it'll be what it will show up here is under past scores and feedback, you'll see the rounds that you previously judged, and you'll be able to click in the button. Instead of saying on my way, the button will say edit feedback. It'll look very much like this screen. I just can't show an example of it, but it'll be next to current ballots, past scores and feedback, and then this button changes to say edit feedback.
Okay, so I can just take notes, like handwritten notes, right? And then do it all later. Because I feel like that would be faster, at least for me personally.
If you're certainly welcome to. I think transcribing everything, depending on how you prefer, like what I usually do is I'll take very short notes and on the typing them and then build them up. But if you want to take your notes on paper, copy them over later, that's absolutely fine.
I don't mind seeing Congress judging.
Okay, sure.
We might end up one day there doing it too. So
sure. I can go through that very quickly. So similarly to speech, you'll see the ballot come up here. Will be a similar start button. We don't list all the students in Congress just because, as you see, Congress will be very large. You'll usually have around 12 to 18 people in a Congress section, but you will see which room you're going to, the start time. If you click into the ballot, it looks very different. Because there are so many people in this list, we don't have a section where we can rank everyone right at the top to give you more room. I think Neil probably explained in Congress training, one of the first things that will happen is someone will be elected presiding officer. So let's say, for example, that Farah is elected presiding officer. You can mark Farah as the presiding officer. You can give comments about feedback for their session, and you are going to give them points. I mentioned before, Congress points are very different than speech. Congress points are on a scale from 1 to 6, 6 being best, 1 being lowest. And for the presiding officer, you're supposed to give them a number of points for each hour of session. Usually in the New York local league, sessions won't be more than 1 hour, so you'll just give the presiding officer one set of points. But let's say they were a very good PO, we can give them 6 points, say, and save that. The next thing that will happen is that the debate cycle will begin. People will speak pro and against different bills. So let's say Alana is our first speaker. She's speaking pro farming subsidies. So she'll give her 3-minute speech. You can write down some feedback for them. And again, you'll give your points. So let's say it was a relatively strong speech, you can give 5 points. The next thing that's going to happen is someone else, maybe Devin, is going to speak against farming subsidies. And you maybe this was it wasn't as strong of a speech, you might give 3 points. And you'll go through, you'll keep track of who's speaking, what points there are. Let me just for the sake of demonstration, let me go back and let's say later on Alana speaks in favor of something else like lunches, and let's this time give her a score of 5, just to show you that once everyone's done and at the end of the session it's time to rank everyone, you can come over to this rankings tab and you'll see it'll record back what points you gave them and give even their average. Oh, I thought I picked 2 different numbers. I guess I didn't. But if I had picked, like, say, a 5 and a 6 here, then it would give you an average of 5.5. Farah would get an average of 6, and you can use that as a way to guide how you're ranking people. Unlike in speech, because you're only working on a 6-point scale, you will have ties in points. So it's not necessarily that you have to rank people equivalent to your points, but it's a good way to balance everything out. So in Congress, there will be 12 to 18 people, but you don't have to rank all of them. Typically, we'll only ask you to rank, say in this example, you're ranking the top 8. Sometimes we'll just ask you to rank the top 7 or the top 9. You only need to go up to that number. So I'll just make up some numbers here, say 1, 2, 3, and then we don't have any speeches for the other people, but you would make up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you can leave the rest of these blank. They'll automatically get a rank of 9. Similarly to with speech, right now there's a problem with this fake ballot. If I click this button, it's going to give me an error, but you would click submit, and similarly to speech, you'll be brought to a page where then you have a red and a green button. Red says no, go back and change something. Green says yes, confirm, I'm done. Any questions about that? One important thing, unlike in speech, like in speech, you can edit your comments up until the end of the tournament, but you can only edit comments if you've created a speech for them. So you notice as I was clicking through, it created the speech 1, speech 2, speech 3 as I was giving points. If you don't do that before you submit your ballot, then you won't have a box to write comments into. So you can come back later and give points for speech 1 and 3 after the round is over. But that only works if you created speech 1 and 3 as you were going along. So try to create the speeches and give these points out as the students are speaking. Any questions about the Congress ballot? Or any questions about anything whatsoever that we've gone through tonight? Even if it's like I can still cover some of the material Julie went through also, if there's any lingering questions. If not, then thank you all very much for your time. Thanks for giving us these hour and a half tonight, and also for your time on Saturday. As we've said multiple times, we could not do this activity without all of you. Thank you so much.